on this episode of the Indie Author Weekly Reading Challenge.
I did a little bit of modeling as a kid, and I was, super tiny, skinny back then, and I hated it. I hated the forced perspective of what people thought was pretty. Nobody tells you when you want to become an author, you're gonna have to spend hours and hours and hours searching for the perfect cover.
Tag along as author Robert Gatke interviews writers and artists about their books, works, and lives. Be part of the journey as these amazing people pursue dreams of fame and fortune.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Indie Author Weekly Reading Challenge, also for traditionally published authors who want to play. I'm Robert Gatke, indie writer and author, and your host and your tour guide as we navigate our way through the indie author world. On today's program, we have Kate Alexander, the author of A Taste of Sweetness. That was the first book in our Indie Author Weekly Reading Challenge, so it's a great interview. Before we get there, just a little bit about my week. I'm recording this on the last day of June 2022. It's a Thursday afternoon, and I'm from Minnesota, which, if you're familiar at all with United States geography, is sort of in the central northern part of the country. They refer to it as the Midwest, but it's not really much of the Midwest. But anyways, the key facet of our weather is cold weather, right? If you actually look at where we are kind of on the globe, we are further north in parts of Maine, even though you wouldn't think so because, the world obviously is curved. But anyways, what we see here is mostly cold weather, except in the summer we get some really hot, really humid days. Typically, like around now, right before the 4th of July, we'll have some really warm weather. And in the town in which I live, every year we have a big 4th of July parade. And people get really excited about that. And so they set out their lawn chairs in advance of the parade, which is fine. I guess the city's okay with that. This year, however, the 4th of July falls on a Monday. And the thing that shocked me is when I was driving home to come record this interview, I saw that people had already put out some chairs on Thursday afternoon. And I was just scratching my head because I thought the rule was always you could maybe put them out 24 hours in advance, right? But we're way beyond that deadline. And it took all my courage not to want to kind of shake my head and tweet at the city that people are now putting them out on a Thursday. But what can you say? People love their parades. The other really interesting thing that happened to me yesterday, and I don't know really what to make of this. So I was recording a TikTok video, and as some of you might know, in my prior lifetime, I was a practicing attorney. And so I am well aware of the copyright issues that kind of float around video recordings and books in general. I remember one of my friends at one point had taken an image, that he just got off Google and put it on his book. And of course that caused a huge storm of letters that came to him because the image was from Getty Images, right? And they try to collect. So anyways, the point is I am fully aware of kind of the copyright issues. And so when I was creating this TikTok video, I had all the permissions and the rights for the images and, more importantly, from the music. And I had used the royalty-free music service Artlist, I think is what it's called. But it has great music, and it's, for one low monthly cost, you can use it. And one of the things you have to do is you have to register your TikTok account so that they know that the music is going in there. So long story short, I spent quite a bit of time putting together this TikTok video because I wanted to use it. If you're familiar with my videos, you'll see that there's kind of a jazz sound at the beginning, the intro time. One of the problems I've had with recording natively on the TikTok app is I, for whatever reason, can't figure out how to limit the length of time that music goes for, right? And so I always have music that either overlaps speech or doesn't really extend long enough. And I thought, hey, if I pay this company Artlist, I can then use their royalty-free music. I'll find a jazz sound similar to the one I was using in TikTok. I'll put that in my videos because I can then line it up using something like Premiere Pro, and it will actually be great. So I spent a few hours last night doing that, getting it all lined up. And then I go ahead and I upload it to TikTok. And there's, in the way that I did that on this particular occasion was using the computer. desktop app because it was easier. The file was already on my computer. Anyways, one of the options there is you can say perform a copyright check before you actually post the video. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And it passed, right? And so I upload the video, and within about 2 minutes of having the video uploaded, TikTok mutes the audio, and then I get a message in my inbox saying that my audio has been muted because I am subject to a copyright infringement investigation. It says something like that. And I was just like, what are you talking about? That's why I'm using this royalty-free music. So I look around within the app trying to figure out, like, what do you do when TikTok sends you this email? Because there's no way to reply. Of course, you can't really do that. And so I search the internet. I'm not really having great success. And then I go on YouTube and I search that basic issue. And it's so interesting. There's a video that comes up from a gentleman who's a singer. And he is describing the exact same situation. I think the video is from like January of 2022. And he's describing the exact same situation where he makes a video and he uploads his own song that he created and made, right? Because he's a musician. And then TikTok nails him with this copyright infringement notice. And so he provides the URL that you can use to actually file what's called a counter notice or something with TikTok. And I did that because I have the license from Artlist or whatever. But he recommended in this video that you simply delete it and you simply do it again, but just look for the sound within the TikTok app because his own song, of course, is on there. And then you won't be subject to the notice because if you file the counter notice like I did, you'll never get a response. It's just an interesting world. It was enough to make me want to just shake my head. I mean, what I ultimately did was I made that video a private video. I did not take it down because I want proof that that is my video, and I tried to do it right. And then I filed the counter notice. But then I ended up having to use music through TikTok. So of course the music doesn't sync exactly right. The thing that I can't understand, and I've seen this all over the place, is why TikTok would go after someone like me in that scenario and send me this notice. When you look at the number of people who are using TikTok under this quote unquote creator account, and they act as if the creator account isn't a personal account, right? But that's what it is. It's just a personal account. They're using TikTok under a creator account, a personal account, even though they're a business. The primary reason they're on TikTok is to hawk their books or to show their book or to do page flips of their books. And then they can use any kind of music they want. But for someone like me who actually says, hey, I'm a business, that's what I am. I'm primarily a book person, a book writer. I'm a novelist. Then I'm limited even when I try to actually have royalty-free music. So anyways, it made me want to scratch my head, but that's neither here nor there. If I ever get a response from TikTok on that issue, I'll let you know. What really is frustrating about it is that it makes me very nervous about trying to upload things with my own audio because they're just going to keep copyright noticing me. And it's like a big black hole that you can't do anything about. And there's no one to actually help you unless you have a gazillion subscribers. So anyways, that's enough of my ranting for now. So back to the episode. Today we have Kate Alexander. She is the author of 4 novels, all within her Blossom Hill series. She's an amazing woman, a great interview. I think you'll really enjoy her. After the interview, stick around because I'm going to give my review of her book. And now, Kate Alexander. Welcome to the program, Miss Alexander.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, like where did you grow up? When did you start writing, stuff like that?
We like to say that we're originally from Cincinnati. My husband and I moved out from Cincinnati in 2009 out here to Phoenix, Arizona. So we've been here quite a while. I did grow up a little bit in Germany because my dad was in the Army. So I had some time over there. And then, Cincinnati is where my parents were from. So I work currently a day job. I work in human resources. So I push around a lot of paperwork. And during that time frame, I started listening to a lot of music while I was doing the paperwork. And just couldn't handle the same music over and over and over again. So I started listening to audiobooks, and that kind of got me started. So that's where we've kind of bloomed into that.
Was your family a bookish family, or are you abnormal in your love for
Not
books?
at all. My dad was an artist, more or less. He liked to draw and do paintings. My mom, she doesn't read a book unless it's a how-to book or how to fix something. Otherwise, she says, I don't want to touch it. She supports me completely, but she doesn't read the books.
Yes, I understand. My daughter actually, right before we filmed this episode, my daughter, who's 13, asked me to ask you if you have any friends because you read so many books. And I thought that's not very nice because I read a lot of books.
Yeah, like growing
So
up,
so you were unique in your love for books.
I was. I would lock myself in my bedroom and read, and my mom would get mad and just be like, go out and do something with your friends. And I'm like, well, why? I'm perfectly happy. Leave me alone.
One of the things I saw somewhere on one of your bios was that you had written stories early in your life, far before you actually published your first
Mhm.
book. So can you tell us, like, do you remember the first fictional story you ever wrote?
Oh yeah. So the first fictional story I wrote was actually like a kid's book, and it was Where is Baby Beans? And it was kind of based off of my old doll when I was a kid, and Baby Beans had gotten lost. Well, as a kid, I decided to stop the policeman to file a missing persons report. So I based my little children's book off of that, that the cop helped me try to find my baby beans. And so, of course, my uncle was on the police force at the time. So they, of course, called him and said, you're not going to believe what your niece just did. And I'm like, so embarrassed now. Like, they all thought it was very funny. And he actually like took a little fake report and everything. So I based my first story off of that.
Are we ever going to see that story? Is that ever going to be
No,
published?
and the first actual book that I wrote, it was in college, and it was on a typewriter because I'm aging myself right now. But my apartment got broken into, and they stole a book, so nobody will see that one either.
Wow. And was it electric typewriter or like a
It
true
was an
manual
electric typewriter, but yeah, like in between classes when
Okay.
I was bored, I would just write on it, and I was all proud of it and super happy. And then while I was away on Christmas break, they stole everything. They stole our food, they stole our plates, they stole our laundry detergent, my clothes, and my book.
Wow. Was it a romance novel or was it
It
not
was
a
more of
romance
a
novel? Do you remember?
drama than it was a romance. It was about a girl and a boy who died, and she was kind of letting him go. So, definitely not what I write now with the happy endings.
Let's talk about the word spice. I'm sure you're familiar with that word.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, I was not familiar with that word until I joined the TikTok universe. So, can you explain to our viewers, like, what does the euphemism spice mean?
So spice is just kind of the heat level of a romance novel. So typically somebody will give it anywhere from 1 chili pepper to 5 chili peppers. And I consider mine to be like a level 3, maybe a 4, where you have the involved, romantic life, and you're descriptive about it. So I don't leave anything to the imagination. I'm very descriptive. But I'm not venturing into the BDSM world or the extreme sex, which is like the 5 scale. So basically, open door, meaning that you can see everything and know everything that happens during their sexual relations. But the 1 chili pepper would be, no, no actual sex, not even really alluding to it. 2 chili peppers, I tend to think of like a fade to black, where you start to get a little descriptive, but then you stop short of everything. So
And when you actually write your stories, do you think about what you're going to put in there for purposes of staying within a different spice level?
It was more just my comfort level, because I really enjoy the level 3, level 4 spice books. I do venture into the 5s every now and then, but it's definitely not my comfort zone. So where I felt comfortable was kind of where I stayed, and writing to market and things of that nature. I kind of figured the type of books that I'm writing were going to be better off to go to the actual level 3 spice, because that's the type of writing that I have, and there are quite a few authors that are kind of right in that range.
Yeah, let's talk about so the book we chose and the book we actually read for this week was called A Taste of Sweetness, which I think is your book one
Yes.
in your
Mhm.
Blossom Hill series. Um, where Where are you in that book? Can we see you in that book at all? I often wonder that when I read these books.
There's quite a bit of me in the first book. I before I started writing again, I actually did a lot of baking, and I do decorate cakes and do the fancy sculptures and the candies. So there's a lot of me in that, and that's what I wanted to do. Was I wanted to write with something I was a little more comfortable with first. So there's a lot of that. There's also the element of the male best friend, which is what I have. I have a male best friend who was a groom's. I was a groomswoman in his wedding, and he was the man of honor in my wedding. So I felt it was really important. I wanted to put a book out there that had a true male-female best friend relationship that was not romantic, and that was something that is important to me, and I wanted to put that out there too.
What about the Diet Coke? So I don't think I'm giving much away to say that the main character Zoe likes Diet Coke.
That's
Is that does that come from you, or is that all made up?
that
Okay.
is
All right, and
all
tell me
me.
about so. And I imagine you probably spilled Diet Coke on yourself before. I imagine
Oh,
like happens in the book. That's
I'm
early on too, folks. I don't think it's a spoiler.
I'm definitely a klutz. Like I break stuff. We buy backup dishes that are the same stuff just because I drop things. It's awful. Like I have no grace.
Let's talk about your setting. So you've got this fictional town, right?
Mhm.
Blossom Hills. And am I right? It's in North Carolina. Is that
Yes, North
true?
Carolina.
And so where did that come from? Like, did you go to a town that you envisioned like Blossom Hill, or is it an amalgamation of lots of different places you've been? Tell me about that.
It's a little bit of an amalgamation. The idea of the town square centering around the gazebo actually comes from Medina, Ohio. They have a big giant town gazebo, and I went up there one day. Um, I was not having a great day, and I stopped and I sat in the middle of the town square, and I had people coming up to me saying hello and how you doing, and you don't look like you're having a good day. Maybe you should come and have dinner with us. And it was just so different from what you experience in a big town like Cincinnati. So that always kind of stuck with me. And I always felt comfortable in that town square, in that gazebo. There was a little band playing at the time, and I really enjoyed it. So that was kind of where my ideal place was. I've been to North Carolina several times to the Outer Banks and the beautiful beaches out there, and I wanted my characters to be close enough to do a weekend getaway to the beach, but still far enough inland where it's a small town feel. So
The feel that I had, and you can tell me whether this is totally wrong or not, and this will also give away sort of my personal interests, but it very much struck me almost like as like a Hallmark small town slash kind of like the town square that you see in Gilmore Girls. I don't know if you've seen that show, but
yeah. I wanted something to have the charm and still have the ability to be quirky. And, you're still going to have the tourists that come in, which is the kind of that wedding centralized tourist town. So you still have enough strangers coming in to kind of mix things up every now and then, which with small towns, I think is important to be able to mix up the characters.
A Taste of Sweetness is book one. And when I was on your website, I saw a blog post that you have. It was titled something like "A Picture is Worth 1,140 Minutes." Do you remember that post? And
I
maybe if you do, maybe you can tell everybody kind of like the story behind that, because it relates right to the cover of A Taste of Sweetness, I think.
Yeah, cover art is a giant pain in the butt. Like nobody tells you when you want to become an author, like, oh, you're gonna have to spend hours and hours and hours searching for the perfect cover. And let me tell you, it's hours. I mean, you find that one picture and you're like, oh, but like his head's cut off. Like, why did they chop off the top of his head? Or like, why is half of their body off of the picture frame? So you've got it like this, and I can't use that for the cover. So, I thought that this was going to be the most fun thing to do, to go ahead and search for cover art. And it's not, it's a pain in the butt. I mean, I love my book, I love my cover, but finding these people was a giant pain.
So you just said that, well, we were talking before the show started here, and you were saying that book 4 is now available on Amazon. Have you stayed with this idea that you have to find the pictures yourself, or have you started to outsource that?
I'm too poor to outsource. So, and I do, the whole reason that I chased the self-publishing option as well is I want the control. I don't want somebody else saying that I think you should have a cartoon artist front. Like, okay, I like some of them, and I enjoy reading them, but that's not what I wanted for my books. I don't want somebody telling me. And finding the cover art is, while it's a pain, it's still so incredibly satisfying when you find that one picture where you're like, that's them. That, without a doubt, is the people I'm looking for. I actually found the second book for Dixie's book. I found that while I was looking for Taste of Sweetness cover. I was like, oh, that's Dixie. And it like jumped out right away. But I was like, but I can't, I'm not on you right now. So I still had to keep searching.
Hi, it's Rob Gatke. So if you're enjoying the show and looking for a way to support me and my writing, please consider buying a copy of my latest book and reviewing it on Amazon. The book is called The Pursuit of Being Noticed. It is a funny, fun adventure about a female lawyer and her sister and their mother. And it also has heart too, which I think is the most important thing about a good story. So if you're looking for something to read this weekend, please consider picking it up. And now back to our show. So tell everybody listening, if they haven't read A Taste of Sweetness, and they should read A Taste of Sweetness, if they haven't gotten it yet, will you tell us why they should read it? What do you think the story is really about?
So the story is really about finding yourself, starting over, having your goals realized, and then finding true love in the meantime as well. I think that it's really important for people to go ahead and find their own happiness, but also you can find other types of happiness that you weren't expecting. That's definitely a situation with Zoe. She's chasing her dream of becoming a baker, and then, meets Tyler in the process and doesn't quite expect everything to go like it is. And she's had bad relationships. So, not something that was on her mind, but being open to trying new things and learning how to open up your heart, even though it's probably been broken one too many times.
And then, yes, that strikes me kind of, that's what I took away from it. When you start the book, we see Zoe and she's not in a great relationship, the man she's with. And this is, again, at the very beginning. So I don't like I'm giving anything away. She's not in a great relationship. How did you think about how you were going to handle that with her and that particular issue?
Absolutely.
I really thought that added to the book. I thought it added a lot to the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes it's sensitive, and I'll just say, I think there's some domestic violence issues that Zoe is involved with, at least at the beginning. And so I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it really struck me that sometimes when you lose someone that you love and you then try to date again, you might find yourself accepting less and less, and then it kind of progresses and snowballs into, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to have. And a lot of women go through that. It's really hard to lose someone you care about and then move on and try to rebuild your life and rebuild what you should be in a relationship. So it was very important to me that it was her best friend who was pointing it out to her, saying, hey, you need to wake up. Like, this is not good. This is not who you are. This is not how you're supposed to be. And sometimes it takes that other person to sit down and go, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what you're worth. And I think it's really important to, take that time to look at your life, from another perspective and go, oh, this isn't what I'm supposed to be. This isn't who I'm supposed to be. So it definitely was very important to me to have her take that time to rebuild herself. And, because I do have a good time frame between when she leaves Lexington, where she's originally from, and moves to Blossom Hills. I give her like a few months to kind of rebuild herself between then. So
one of the things, another part of the book that I really enjoyed was just who Zoe is. And what I mean by that is, and I mentioned this, and the people will hear about this later in my review, but one of the things that I thought really was compelling about Zoe was that she was so real woman, let's call her, right? And what I mean by that is, like, so many of these heroines or heroes or whatever are so idealistic, Hollywood, six-pack abs type. And she's more like realistic, right? I mean, obviously she's attractive because Tyler likes her and everybody in the whole town likes her. So It's not like she's some bad person. But can you talk about, was that a conscious decision when you created her, that you made her not a 10 out of a 10 just from from a physical appearance perspective?
Absolutely. Very important to me. I did a little bit of modeling as a kid, and I was, super tiny, skinny back then, and I hated it. I hated the forced perspective of what people thought was pretty and what we should look like and how we should act. And I just want to be comfortable in my own skin, and I wanted my character to be comfortable in her own skin. And let's face it, if you work in a bakery and you're creating all these recipes, I don't think you're going to be a size 2. I just don't feel like that's a realistic perspective. I
Now that's right. Now the one bone I will pick with you, and I guess I forgot to mention this in my little review video, but I'm going to pick it with you now, and I want you to answer this for me. I don't see any sort of gluten-free pastry ever being mentioned in that bakery. Now, as someone who suffers from celiac disease, I hope there's a gluten-free pastry that she makes that I could buy as well. Or maybe in the next book, she could make one.
I will try to make sure to mention that. So, yeah, there's a lot more. There's going to be definitely with the book I'm writing now, because the one that I'm writing now is for Derek. So there will be probably a lot more interaction. I'll try to work in that gluten-free for you.
I would love it. I would love it. All right. So I'm going to rapid fire some other questions at you. So beyond your book, obviously, assuming people are going to go out and buy your book, which they should, plotter or pantser, where do you fall?
Oh, pantser completely. Generally speaking, I have this is in my head. This is how they meet. This is where I want it to end. And you guys tell me how we get there. So it's constantly them telling me. And I couldn't tell you how many times I was writing Ariel's book, and I literally had Josie in the background going, "This is my story. Talk to me. And I'm going, yeah, not right now. I'm busy." So I don't even have time to do an outline or, really do that. It's so much more what I feel and what they're telling me. And while it sounds crazy, it's what works.
It seems very natural in your book. So what character, someone else's character, what character would you most like to write for?
From someone else's book series?
Yeah. Or movie or TV show or anything.
Lexi Blake, she has the Masters and Mercenaries series. Ian, the guy that runs the Masters and Mercenaries security firm, Ian Taggart, I think is his name. He's such a sarcastic, funny, over male protective alpha, and I love her books. I love his sarcasm, his humor. It's so much fun. I would love to take a chance to write him into my town and kind of making a mess of everything.
All right. How about Apple or PC?
Oh, PC. I can't stand Apple. It drives me crazy. My mom has an iPhone, and she asks me to do something on it all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Give it to my brother. Have him fix it.
So what do you think? And I'm going to ask from a technical perspective now. What do you think you do well as a writer?
Character, the developing of the characters themselves, giving them full life, as far as you can actually really feel who they are and figure out who they are. I feel like the developing of the characters is my strong suit. Sometimes my conflict, I feel, is my weakness, but definitely my character development and figuring out who they are specifically.
Well, I've only read one of your books, but I definitely think Zoe comes across as real. So I would agree. So which of your novels, you have 4 now, which of your novels is your baby? Do you like the most, and why?
I think my baby honestly has to be Images of Devotion with Dixie and Chase. They spoke the loudest, the clearest for developing their story, and it's not as dark as some of the elements that happen in For Taste of Sweetness. It's a lot more light, it's a lot more fun. It definitely has some of its drama involved, but the interaction with Dixie and Chase and his humor and her humor, it's so much fun. And it was fun writing that book and researching. I have them going to a family get together, and Dixie's family is actually Hawaiian based. So I looked up a lot of Hawaiian traditions and read a lot about it. And I had a friend who was Hawaiian at one point. So it was a lot of fun to develop all that into the story.
Do you have to have read book 1 to read that one, or are they separate enough?
They are definitely separate enough. I designed the books to where they could be read as standalones. I do mention events, of course, that happen in previous books when they all get together for friends' nights and things like that. But I kind of give little snippets of, oh, this person did this and this person did this, and kind of remind the readers if it's been a long time so they can go back and be like, oh, yeah, I remember when that happened.
All right. So some more rapid fire questions here. So what is your least favorite word or phrase that you see in books or novels?
Holding a breath that they didn't realize they were holding. And I'm not even sure if I'm guilty of putting that in there, but I think in the past 7 audiobooks I've listened to, it was probably in there at least 2 times per book.
That's a good one. I think mine would be rolled her eyes or something. Rolled her eyes. I see that all over the place.
Yeah,
And
the arching
my wife
eyebrow,
makes fun of me for
which I do
saying
too.
that too much.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So what job or profession would you not like to do?
I don't want to do anything outdoors all day. I mean, I know that's generic, but like my husband delivers for Amazon now. And so he is in that truck and in and out of the truck and delivering in the heat. And we live in Arizona. I want nothing to do with anything that I have to stand outside or work outside all day. Give me my office with my air conditioning. It's 110 on a regular basis. I'll pass.
No park ranger future for you. I see.
No, I'm not a nature girl. Like I get poison ivy and I just like fall down little cliff sides. And like I said, I have no grace. It doesn't end well for me.
So what do you think is the most meaningful fiction book you've ever read?
That's really hard because honestly, the one book that kind of got me back reading again, for me personally, it's going to be a romance book just because I started to get back into writing and it was important to me. But as far as other people, the importance of Mark Twain's books to me in high school were really important to me. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, those were really important to me when I was in high school. But of course, now wanting to have something more personal, I was reading a Kristen Proby book when all of a sudden the character started talking to me. So, yeah, I mean, it just depends on the time of my life what that answer would be.
All right. That's fair enough. So tell me the place in the world you would most like to live, but have never gotten to.
Italy. Absolutely. I want to go to Italy so
Why?
bad. I love the architecture. I'm into mythology a lot. I love reading about Greek and Roman mythology, the buildings, the history, the food. I mean, the pasta and the bread and everything else. It's just so picturesque and seems like such a relaxing life in Italy. I would love to live there. I'd love to be there. My husband's afraid to fly over an ocean, so we've got that challenge, but I definitely would go to Italy.
Tell me what your idea of happiness is. Like, what would that mean?
Happiness to me would be, like I say, when I'm talking about Zoe, is comfortable in my own skin and being able to do the things that I love. For me, writing my books, I enjoy it. I, of course, have a day job, but if I could do that full time, that would be perfect for me. I want to be able to travel and work. I think that would be the perfect lifestyle. Being able to see going across the country and traveling around. And my husband and I talk about it all the time, getting an RV or, working remotely just to kind of be with each other and enjoy each other's company and enjoy, watching other things as life goes by and being able to participate in that.
So we're almost out of time here, but if you could give everyone listening one piece of advice, and it doesn't have to be anything to do with writing, what would you tell them?
Find what makes you happy and learn more about what makes you happy. Whether it's baking, whether it's photography, whether it's, research or, going outdoors. Find more ways to enjoy what you're doing. Don't stop at, okay, well, got to go there. That's, I'm happy. Well, what about that made you happy? And see something else that's relatable and go out and go forward into the world and enjoy life and find other ways, that branch off to that as well.
Well, Kate Alexander, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. I really enjoyed your book. I thought it was just a really great read, and I think people should definitely check it out if they haven't already. Good luck. How many more books do you think will there be in the Blossom Hill series?
I've actually got probably about 4 more stories floating around in my head for Blossom Hills. But I do kind of have a spin-off that I talk about in the latest book for a restaurant that opened up where it's called Turbulence, where I have everything inside the restaurant airplane themed. They've got airplane wings as tables, aircraft drinks and things like that, and people actually come in flight suits to take your order. And so the owners of the restaurant, I've got a lot of ideas floating around for them as well for stories. So I'm kind of looking forward to that spinoff, but I definitely have some more Blossom Hill ideas that I want to get out there first.
All right. Well, we'll be on the lookout for them. Thanks again for joining us, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Kate Alexander as much as I did making it. I'll tell you, she seems like just a wonderful person. She's definitely a good writer. And I've kind of got my fingers crossed that maybe in one of her upcoming novels, she will incorporate a gluten-free pastry in honor of me. It would be pretty cool. But all right, I know you're sticking around primarily to see how I review her book. And I'm doing this because I said I would as part of the challenge. I will review all the books. And on Scout's honor, even though I was never actually a Scout, I read every page of Miss Alexander's book, and I really, really did enjoy it. So here is my official review. I have it written down because I don't want to misstate it. I give Kate Alexander's A Taste of Sweetness this review: 6 purple elephants, 3 corn cobs, and 2 turtles. The people behind the camera they're telling me that that's not a real review, that you want. Yeah, you want a different review. Well, I'm just going to say, I don't think I am obligated to follow Amazon's star rating system. I never said I would follow Amazon's star rating system. And as an author, I just don't feel like I want to do that. And the reason why, I'll tell you like right now. So I looked at the reviews for my book, and as of this morning, I think I had 31 reviews perhaps for The Pursuit of Being Noticed, and I might be like a 4.3 or something. You know, and I look at that and I always think to myself, well, why am I not a 4.6 or a 4.4 or a 3.9? Or, you know, and every time I read a review and I see, I have some reviews on Goodreads too, and I always look at these reviews, and no matter how much I know that I'm not supposed to look at the reviews, every time I do, you know, I feel like there's like just a little piece of my heart that's kind of cut out, because these reviews almost always are written by people, right, who are not creators. They don't actually write these books, or they don't actually create their own books that we get to judge. They just walk around giving opinions about our books, and that's totally fine, and that's what they get to do as readers. And yet, I also think, though, that for us as creators, it does just take a little bit away from us every time we read those reviews. And when I started writing, I kind of resolved that I wasn't going to ever do that to anyone else. And that's not to say that I don't have opinions about books, or that I don't find some books good and some books bad. Oh, I absolutely do. You know, and if you lived in the same house as me, you would definitely hear me say things about books I don't like. But I don't want to do that publicly, mostly because my taste and my opinion might just be wrong, right? Or it just might not be even in accord with the majority of people. And I never want to do anything to hurt an author's career. So what I'm going to do as part of this series, when I review books, I may give ridiculous reviews like this, the 6 purple elephants, things like that. But what I will do every time is try to talk about the things I loved about the book, or what I liked about the book, things that kind of left a mark on me. And here's what I can tell you about A Taste of Sweetness. I thought the characters were really good. Like, one of the things I really liked about the book was the main character, Zoe. So much of what we see on TV these days, for men and women, both involves these kind of like unrealistic Ken Barbie type personas or bodies. I mean, I'll give you an example. So my wife and I went to the New Kids on the Block concert here in the Minneapolis area not too long ago. She was a big fan of them when we were kids. And during part of the show, one of the singers, and I don't remember the person's name, but he lifted up his shirt, to show his stomach, and he had the rock hard abs. I think he was like 50 or 55, and he had not an ounce of fat on him. And I remember saying to my wife when I left the stadium, like, God, that guy probably never eats pizza, like ever. And so I think so much of what we see portrayed in terms of characters, both in books and on TV and in movies, is really unrealistic. It's these people who spend their entire lives trying to stay this ideal shape. And so one of the things I liked about A Taste of Sweetness was that the main character wasn't that way. So Zoe was a real person. Like, she had the shape of a real woman and the body of a real woman. And that's not to say she wasn't attractive, because I think in every way she was attractive. And I mentioned that in the interview that, it seemed like the whole town loved her. Certainly Tyler, the love interest in the story, really thinks she's beautiful. And so there's no suggestion that she's not pretty. It's just that she's more real. And that's one of the things I really, really liked about the story. I thought the people all around were real. The fact that some of the guys in the story are involved in computer science and computers and stuff, that also makes them more real, right? They're not like an FBI agent or something. The other thing that I really liked about the story was the setting. It had a very Hallmark-esque / Gilmore Girls feel. I mentioned that in the interview as well. I thought that was pretty cool. And then the last thing that I really liked about the story probably was the fact that there was this subplot going on. So there's the main storyline, right, which of course is the relationship between Zoe and Tyler, and in these kind of romance novels, that's always got to be the main plot. But there was a subplot, and it involved Zoe's kind of emotional situation and her past relationships. And I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to spoil that for you, but I thought that added something in a real way that made the book extraordinary. The other thing that I thought was good was that as someone who doesn't normally read romance or spicy books at all, I thought it had not too much, not too much that it made me not want to read it, but also enough that it sort of kept me interested in that part of it. So A Taste of Sweetness by Kate Alexander, definitely a thumbs up. You should check it out. Join us next week. Next week, we'll be talking about our new book, which is We Are Saul by Richard D. It's available on Kindle, and it's in Kindle Unlimited. I am going to reach out to Mr. D. I've got my fingers crossed. I really hope he will come be a guest on our program too. So until next week, keep reading.